Patriots. Welcome to the Ryan Samuel Show. We're here. We're live. We're going to talk about a topic that is insanely ridiculous, and I can't even understand why I have to cover it. Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes. Now, Nick Fuentes is, I guess, a white nationalist or like an actual Nazi. There were some murmurings a while back before he got bigger than he is, before he got as big as he is now, where he was talking about possibly coming on this show, going on the Don't Unfriend Me show. There were certain situations where we were going to talk to him and basically just destroy him with facts. But, you know, it never came to fruition. Now, it's easy to get bigger when you're super controversial. When you're talking about hating the Jews and the blacks and being straight up just racist, like extremely racist, we're going to go over and cover that. It's easier because people, it's the shock factor, right? They're shocked, they're appalled. But anyway, he was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. This is obviously a big day for Nick Fuentes. But the right side of the aisle is freaking crumbling down, crying, kicking their feet because Tucker Carlson had the audacity to interview somebody. Now, if you are any legitimate journalist, then you should be interviewing people, especially if they're controversial. It's important to know and understand what makes somebody like Nick Fuentes tick. What makes him the way that he is? What were his experience? And now I will tell you, not 100% of the things that he says is wrong. Just because he is a racist, just because he is a very anti-Semitic or misogynist or whatever you want to say or label him as, it does not mean that 100% of the things that he says is wrong. It doesn't automatically negate every opinion that he has. I don't agree with 90% of his opinions. I don't accept 90% of his opinions, but I do not feel that he should not be permitted to go on Tucker Carlson. I don't think that he should be canceled. I do not feel that he should be silenced. In fact, I think everybody should listen to him. And then you can just kind of understand him as a person and what his opinions are and where they come from. See, when you suppress voices, you give them more validity. Let them speak. Tucker Carlson should be interviewing anybody he wants to. I would interview Nick Fuentes on this show. We came close to doing it, I think it was like 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, maybe 4. I would interview him, and I wouldn't care what anybody on this planet had to say. I wouldn't care what anybody's feelings are. I am going to conduct this interview, and that's exactly how Tucker Carlson should act and feel. So we're going to listen to some of the clips from Nick Fuentes himself. We're going to listen to some of the clips about Nick Fuentes on Tucker Carlson. We're going to listen to conservative commentators like Ben Shapiro, who's obviously not going to like somebody like Nick Fuentes. If Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic and Ben Shapiro is Jewish, then they're not going to agree on much. And Ben Shapiro is not going to be nice about the things that he has to say. Matt Walsh also had some things to say. So did Steven Crowder. And it's some of it's surprising, others is not. But we're going to cover that. We're going to go over that. Stick here. Do not go anywhere. It's going to be a great show. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe button and follow this channel. We will be right back in 47 seconds.
The Ryan. Hi, this is Sarah Palin.
Ryan, Donald Trump Jr.
Harsh to NCL. Hey, everybody, I want y'all to check out a fellow Marines podcast.
My name is Ted Nugent, and I got a call from my buddy Ryan F. Samuels, and he wants me to tell you that he's a working hard, playing all-American son of a who is celebrating God, family, country.
Welcome to the Ryan Samuels Show, one of the top political podcasts in the United States, where we have a healthy distrust for government and mainstream media. The Ryan Samuels Show is a raw, unfiltered look at American politics. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. Here is your host, Ryan Samuels.
So, Tucker Carlson met with Megyn Kelly to discuss the Nick Fuentes interview, and Tucker pushes back, and he should push back, because I think Tucker did a decent, good interview. I don't think he really pushed back very hard, but he's not usually the one that really pushes back. The only time I've really seen him push back very hard was when he interviewed Putin about releasing the journalist, and there was another time too. I can't think of it, but we'll come back to that. But it was when he interviewed Ted Cruz about Israel, right? He pushed back really hard on that. Now, Tucker has become very critical of Israel, right? Particularly about why is the United States funding Israel so heavily? These are good questions. If the right side of the aisle is going to criticize heavily the Democrats' funding of Ukraine and talk about America first, and then support the incredible funding of Israel, there's almost a contradiction there. I think it's different. I think it's much more imperative and in America's interest for us to financially support Israel with money or weapons or military aid and support in the region. They provide some stability for, yes, oil and the Straits of Hormuz. I think that it's critical to the protection of the United States. They gain intelligence in the area with Islamic extremists. We've seen the damage they can do with 9/11, etc. I think it's good that the United States funds Israel. However, a lot of people on the right side of the aisle don't agree with that. That's okay. They have valid points as well. We just disagree. So Tucker's become critical of Israel. Fuentes is just anti-Semitic and critical of Israel. And Megyn Kelly asks Tucker some questions, and his response is pretty sweet. Let's listen to it.
Nick Fuentes has said a long list of very vile things.
Big time, including attacking my dad, which was the most vile of all, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seems to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people who say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with Putin. Why aren't you yelling at him? Okay, why? So I can show that I'm a good person? I care about what my wife thinks, my children think, and God thinks, and that's it. I don't need to prove that I'm a good person to you. You may think I'm a terrible person. Okay, I'm just doing my thing, which is I want to understand what people think. And I'm committed to that. And if you don't like it, don't watch. That's my view.
That's the perfect answer, because that's what he's there for. He's there to seek the truth, to understand what Nick Fuentes his thoughts are, why he is the way that he is, to clarify maybe some of the things that he said, because they do clip and cut things and make you look bad. They've done it with this show. We've covered it. But this, I think it's good. I think it's a great thing. I think the Nick Fuentes of the world should be in front of a public camera for people to understand what the heck they're saying and disagree with it. Here is a clip of the interview with Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson talking about Christian Zionism.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like, what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't, like, why not? Like, I'm pissed at the neocons, very pissed. I've said that a million times. I've been mad since December of 2003 when I went to Iraq. And so, like, I went and asked straightforward questions to Ted Cruz, because that seemed like he was a sitting senator who's like serving for Israel by his own description. He seemed like a worthy target. I'm not going after MTG, who's like the most sincere like, why not go after Ted Cruz? I don't understand.
They agree on this issue. Now, there is a split on the right side of the aisle when it comes to Israel. There are the Christian, I guess you can call them Zionists, the Christians who support Israel because the Bible tells you to support Israel. There's a passage in Genesis. I'm a Catholic. We learn it a little bit differently than, say, a Protestant or a Lutheran. It's different sects of religion, which usually have differentiating opinions on different interpretations of the Bible. But, like, to me, I guess some people would call me a Zionist, but I'm not doing it for religious reasons. I don't support Israel for religious reasons. I support Israel for national security reasons, because they're a strong ally in the center of a world that wants you dead because you're a Christian, or because you're not Muslim, you should be murdered. There's a fundamental difference. But Ted Cruz has said that the Bible tells you to support Israel. That's not a good argument as an American politician for policy. So they're going to agree on that issue. So this is Nick Fuentes and Tucker, or this is, no. This is Candace Owens, who's completely lost the plot. She has lost the plot like nobody else I've ever seen in my life. Here they are. Let's listen.
Is because someone sent me a video a few years ago of him attacking me, and I was like, so I'm looking at this. And I'm like, well, first of all, this kid's really talented, like legit. And I can assess that just having done the job for so long. So it's like, wow, lots of talent, native talent. And he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn, actually, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
This was in March of this year. And I'm like, well, how the hell would this child from Chicago, my dad was 84 when he passed. Like, who's this guy know who my dad is? And like, he's in intelligence world. How would he know that? And I
Wait, so that was his critique of you? Because I didn't see it. It was
someone just sent me this video and was like, you can't believe anything Carlson says because his father was in the CIA and he's a CIA working on behalf of the CIA. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, and I actually feel emotional in my anger towards CIA. And I think that comes out on the.
So they both think that each other are feds. We're going to get to that clip in a second. But Tucker Carlson thinks that Nick Fuentes is a fed, and Nick Fuentes feels that Tucker Carlson is a fed because his dad was the CIA agent, allegedly. Is that true? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but here's the clip of them telling each other that they thought that each other were feds.
I thought you were a fed.
I thought you were a fed.
I was a fed.
Yeah.
I'm not a fed. But whatever, I don't care what people think.
We showed each other our badges. We know we're all.
No, but I thought you were a fed because I was like, why not? It's not cucking to say you're not talking about all Jews when you oppose a foreign policy position. It's not. There's nothing liberal about that. It's just true. That's the Christian position, okay? And two, why are you attacking like the best people and not the worst people?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, he disavowed me for my views on Israel and said I talk too much about white people and Christianity. And to me, that's like a sincere ideological disagreement.
I get it.
And, you know, same thing with Marjorie. Marjorie fired my guy. She disavowed me. And, you know, and you worked with Blumenthal on that article, but you called me on the phone and we talked.
Yeah. I mean, I was
it.
like, what? From my perspective, I mean, this is all so stupid and inside baseball and whatever, but for the record, I was like, first of all, who is this kid? I'm working at Fox News. I'm aware there's an internet, but I'm more out of it than you may appreciate. And I'm like, out of nowhere, attacking this one. I had Joe Kent here to my house and did this interview with him. And I'm always in search of a sincere politician. Don't have to agree on everything, but I really believe sincerity is the whole game. If someone's heart is pure, he will be brave. I always have thought that, and it's turned out to be true. Marjorie's a perfect example. And that's all that matters. If you're afraid inside, if you're weak inside, you will crumble when it matters. So I really felt like, wow, Joe, don't agree with him on everything, of course, but I was like, this guy is really sincere. He's like a good person. And then you show up and you're like, he's a CIA officer, and he was a CIA contractor, but like really like crush the guy. And it's like, why, of all people, you agree on 90% of stuff? You know, that was my view. And I was like, well, clearly this kid's a Fed.
Right. But you didn't know the whole story.
I didn't. Oh, you're absolutely right.
And look.
So that's what he's saying. He's saying that he thought this kid was a Fed because the kid knew that his dad was a CIA contractor. That's where where they're accusing each other of being Feds. And now it is being cleared up.
Look, and now that, and I'm not trying to be combative. I think that.
Go ahead. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Here's what I'm trying to say is, now that Marjorie is pushing in the right direction, I absolutely support everything she's saying. And I've not been critical of her at all this year.
Yeah.
Because I think that what she's doing is extremely courageous. And I think you're right. She is sincere.
So it sounds like you're, not to put words in your mouth, but your life experience has left you so stung by the Republican establishment. You don't trust anybody, it sounds like.
Well, no, I mean, these people attacked me when the rules were different, and now they got better, and now I'm good with them. I mean, I'm willing to be good with them, but I think that I don't know if Marjorie still has a problem with me or not.
So the problem with Nick Fuentes is all of these politicians were forced to basically disavow him because Nick Fuentes has said some very racist things. He really has. But they were forced. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, they had to denounce him. We don't support him. He's a far-right extremist. He's a Nazi, whatever. He is a white nationalist. He is racist. He is anti-Semitic. He is all of those things. But the most critical person is Ben Shapiro of Nick Fuentes. Now, here's the thing about Ben Shapiro. I love Ben Shapiro. I think his show is awesome. I think he is incredibly intelligent. But I think that his viewpoint is compromised when it comes to Israel. And that's because he's very close to Israel. Pretty sure he's an Israeli citizen. He's an Orthodox Jew. Nothing wrong with that. I love Orthodox Jews. I think they're awesome. I disagree with them about the divinity of Jesus Christ, obviously, but I think they're great, wholesome, religious, amazing people. Obviously, this Orthodox Jew is not going to let anybody touch Israel. He's not going to let anybody go against Jews. He's been very vocal against Nick Fuentes from the beginning, as he should be, as I would be, because somebody like Nick Fuentes, who hates Jews, like wholeheartedly hates Jews, and Nick Fuentes hasn't said this, but it would scare me to the point where, oh my God, does he want to kill all of the Jews like Hitler did? Is he really a Nazi? Yes, obviously. So let's listen to what Ben Shapiro has to say about this interview with Nick Fuentes. We have a couple of Ben Shapiro clips, and I think that they're important.
Let's make one thing clear. This is not about free speech or cancellation. It was never about free speech or cancellation. Free speech has a definition: the right to speak free of governmental coercion. I believe in it, of course. I've always defended it. Criticism of bad speech is, in fact, just a form of free speech. Cancellation also has a definition: the banning of particular people, including people like Nick Fuentes, from platforms like X or Facebook. I believe that Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable, but I've never called for his cancellation, and in fact, I've called for his restoration to those services, despite the fact that I think he's odious and despicable. It is not cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. In fact, we used to call that one of the key aspects of conservatism. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes. It is not cancellation to criticize Tucker Carlson for rhetorically fluffing Nick Fuentes and other anti-American crackpots. It's not cancellation if you urge others to stop promoting those who rhetorically fluff Nazi apologists.
He is basically saying that, here's what he's saying. Well, let's finish the clip and then I'll break it down.
Those are all elements of free speech. And anyone who says differently is lying to you, and lying for the most cynical reasons, to misdirect from their own defense of those Nazi apologists and their promoters. The issue here isn't that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show last week. He has every right to do that, of course. The issue here is that Tucker Carlson decided to normalize and fluff Nick Fuentes, and that the Heritage Foundation then decided to robustly defend that performance. Those who criticize both Tucker and Heritage aren't canceling. They are quite properly drawing a moral line.
He starts off the argument by saying that Nick Fuentes should not be canceled. Nick Fuentes should be on a platform. I advocated for Nick Fuentes to go on that platform. And then saying Tucker Carlson has every right to interview Nick Fuentes. And then in the same breath saying that, but Tucker Carlson promoted Nick Fuentes. He didn't promote Nick Fuentes. He just interviewed him. So Ben Shapiro is saying, and I very rarely disagree with Ben. Very, very rarely. We're usually of the same mindset on most things. He lives not too far from me. A super nice guy. But in one breath, he's saying you can't cancel him and Tucker Carlson can interview him. But Tucker Carlson didn't interview him. He fluffed him and promoted him. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that he should be allowed on the show and then when he's allowed on the show, not like how it's conducted. You can be critical of Nick Fuentes, 100%, but you cannot be critical of Tucker Carlson interviewing somebody that even Tucker Carlson disagrees with. And I understand the sensitivity and the connection of Ben Shapiro and his Jewish heritage to the hate of Nick Fuentes. I get it. I do not disagree. I think Nick Fuentes is wrong on a lot of things that he says. Here's another clip of Ben Shapiro.
Big problem for Tucker Carlson in all of this. Nick Fuentes is absolutely 100% correct. Tucker is a coward, and Tucker's audience, much of which he shares with Nick Fuentes, knows it. And so Tucker hit upon a final stratagem. He let Nick Fuentes cuck him. He brought Nick Fuentes on to legitimate his ideology. He signal boosted Fuentes, glossed him, shined him, presented him to the world, all in order to protect his own reputation with his online base, a base he is competing over with Nick Fuentes. Now, of course, Tucker has a right to do all of this for the 100th time. He can do what he likes. This is America. But there's no question that Tucker has become the most virulent super spreader of vile ideas in America. And the rest of us who oppose those vile ideas have every right to call him that.
Of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich.
This is Nick Fuentes, by the way. Ben is just really upset that Tucker Carlson put Nick Fuentes on the show. And now he's trying to link the two together. But that's Nick Fuentes that you just saw. Of course, you've seen him before. But I disagree, Ben.
To call him that.
Bragging about.
Here is Nick Fuentes calling out Tucker Carlson. This is, I guess, before their meeting.
About being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich. Now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. You want to talk about me and them? I am them.
Well, there was one.
And then he goes on to you should be criticizing Nick Fuentes, but you should not be criticizing Tucker Carlson for hosting him. I don't think that there's anything wrong with Tucker Carlson doing that. And Ben, man, I think that you're wrong on this one. You can't have it both ways. Here is another clip of Tucker Carlson with Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes was also invited. Well, Kanye West brought Nick Fuentes to dinner with Donald Trump. This was back years ago. This was obviously a national news story when they found out a white nationalist had dinner with Donald Trump, and it was all over the place. This is Tucker Carlson asking about the question.
What did you think of that?
It was surreal because those are my two heroes. Those are my two number one heroes of all time. I've always been a Kanye West fan.
You like the music first?
Yes. The music, the fashion, everything.
Really?
Yes.
Do you wear those weird one-piece shoes?
I do.
You actually do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like in public?
Yes. You don't think that's cool?
No, I do. I don't know what I think.
I'll get you some.
I've worn the same clothes since high school. Don't ask me about clothes. I'm not good at that at all. That's hilarious. So you've always been a fan.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
huge fan.
You described your love for Trump, like sincere childhood love for Trump. So what was it like to find yourself at dinner with them?
It was funny because it was literally Thanksgiving dinner. It was 3 days before Thanksgiving. So not only was it dinner, but I'm having Thanksgiving dinner with Ye and Trump at the same table. And these are like my heroes. And
if Kanye West is your hero, you got bigger problems. I'm sorry, Nick.
And, the way that it went was sort of interesting. Ye is sort of shy. He deeply admires Trump. He loves Trump. And I like that about him because Ye really admires anybody that's an industrialist. He loves builders, visionaries, architects. He's very into that. So he has a deep regard for Trump. And so at the beginning, it was a little awkward because he wouldn't talk. And he was sort of shy.
Ye.
Yes. Which is surprising, right? Because he's so outspoken, but Trump was trying to get him to talk. And it was kind of like a boomer moment because Trump was trying to get him to talk about like opportunity zones. He was giving him like the black voter pitch, the black Republican.
Really?
Pitch. Yeah. And I was like, dude, like he's not that kind of Republican, to say the least,
Fair.
At this point, I think people
So
know
what
that.
were you saying?
Well, so eventually, Trump didn't have a lot of luck with him, so he's kind of fielding the table, and he's talking to me. And
Trump does like other people to talk.
Yes. Well, he likes to talk too.
He does, for sure.
Yeah.
But he asks questions.
Yeah, he does.
More than you would think.
Well, he's a good guy, fundamentally.
Yeah.
He's a very warm guy. So he was asking everybody, what's up and who are you? And we got to talking. And, I guess it was going too well because I was being very complimentary of Trump. And Ye was kind of kicking me and saying, like, a couple days prior, we were talking about if Trump and Ye wind up on the debate stage, what is that going to look like? And I was coaching Ye, like, these are his weak areas. Like, this is where we got to attack Trump. And so Ye was like, tell him what you were saying the other day. Tell him what you were saying last night. And I was like, dude, that's our playbook. Like, we don't want to blow up our... and Trump was like, go ahead, don't be bashful. Tell me, what is it? And I said, you know what? I said, I think you're one of the greatest living Americans. I said, I'm a young guy. I said, I really have nothing to say other than thank you. I have nothing but gratitude for what you've done for the country. I said, it's really not my place, to give you advice or correct you. And he said, no, don't be bashful. Tell me. And the story that I brought up this was really what sent me. In the first Fox News debate in 2015, in the Republican primary,
yes,
Bret Baier, the first question said, raise your hand if you will not pledge to support the eventual nominee.
Yes.
And Trump raised his hand because that's what he was saying. He said, if I don't win, I'll run independent and I'll make Republicans lose. And so I brought that up and I told that story and I said, I feel like what was inspiring in 2016 is that you were willing to let the Republican establishment lose. Like you were serious about blowing them up, such that you are not going to say, like Pat Buchanan, who I respect, but Sam Francis acknowledged that was one of his great mistakes, was ultimately endorsing Bush. I said, it showed you were serious. You were playing to win, because you said, I will let this Republican Party crash and burn. I want to run as the Republican, but if I can't, I'll run independent. I said, and that's how I knew you were serious. And that's how I knew you were the guy. I said, and I feel like lately, this was right after Ronna McDaniel became the head of the RNC again. I was like, I feel like lately you're just behind all these people. I said, we're not here for Kevin McCarthy. We're not here for Ronna McDaniel or Mitch McConnell. I said, we are here for you. Like, we will die for you. We are loyal to you. I said, and when you did that, that showed you could win, and we rallied. I said, so I want to see more like that. I want to see you hit DeSantis, let's say, who is running against him. And he was like, oh, okay. He goes, oh, so you like that? It was right after he called them DeSanctimonious.
Yeah.
I said, that was awesome. You should have kept hitting him. He's like, oh, you like that? He goes, this guy's hardcore. I like this guy, he was saying about me. And so I was trying to just get his mojo back, and, gas him up a little bit. And so that's how it went between me and him.
And what was Ye saying at this point?
Well, he was beaming with pride, because Trump turns to him and says, who is this guy? This guy's great. And Ye was like, right? And I was like, this is amazing.
Did you call your parents from the parking lot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You'll never believe. Yeah.
So that's how the dinner went, the mysterious dinner. White nationalist met with a white nationalist all over the place. It was freaking this stupid story. But Kanye West is completely out of his mind. Completely out of his mind. Here's another clip of Tucker Carlson and Fuentes. Tucker Carlson apologizing for calling Nick Fuentes gay. Now, Nick Fuentes is a virgin. He calls himself an incel, which is an involuntarily celibate person. He's a virgin. At least he used to be. I don't know if he still is. I'm pretty sure he still is, though. Maybe we'll find out in this clip.
So what are the other factors that prevent... I'm sorry I called you gay, by the way.
Hey, Kat, welcome on.
But I'm always... I think I'm just too old or something. I'm like, what? Why is anyone married? You tell me. Why aren't people married?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the women. The women are extremely liberal. No one talks about that. Increasingly, they do, especially after the last election. There's a 45-point difference between men and women. The men are extremely conservative, increasingly. The women are extremely liberal.
What are they liberal on? What issues? What does that mean, liberal?
Oh, they're very feminist.
Actually?
Extremely feminist, yes.
They don't believe that, do they?
I think they do.
Really?
Absolutely,
How could
yes.
you believe that?
I think
gender roles are a construct, that none of this is inborn? Like, you'd have to be an idiot to think that.
They like the idea of it. Because, of course, I think all women naturally want strong men.
Of course, obviously.
They naturally want a Chad. They want like a tall, buff guy. None of them want to work either. None of them actually want to work.
No, that's what I'm saying. Of course.
Right.
It's obviously true. It's always been true. Work outside the home.
Right.
They don't have enough work at home. There's a lot to do. But no, I completely agree. So that's why I question, like, their feminism in what sense?
Yes. And, they like these vague appeals to equality. We want a chance to work, and we want respect. And, ultimately, I think the whole political system is just based around women never being accountable for any of their choices. Ultimately, that seems to be that's what abortion is.
Yeah, of course.
As 99% of abortions are elective. So they say it's an unplanned pregnancy. You had sex out of wedlock with someone you didn't intend to have kids with. So now we have to kill the kids in the womb. And, these no-fault divorce laws. These women get married to guys maybe they never intend to stay with. And then when they're out, they're done. And they want child support and they want half the stuff. And I think a lot of men are looking at women and they're very liberal. They're overweight. They have a very high estimation of themselves. I think that people call it hoflation.
Hoflation?
Yes. Their sense of their own looks and sexual value is very inflated. And so a lot of people are looking at these like frumpy, obnoxious, loudmouth, liberal women who are also very promiscuous and saying this is not actually appealing at all. And I don't want to start a family with a person
Sounds
like
awful.
this. Yeah, it is.
But if you believe in the patriarchy, as I fervently do, because it's just reality, we didn't choose the system. We were born into a system that is part of nature, can't get out of it. So if you believe that that's true, which it is, then you think that men should lead. And if it's going to be better, men should make it better.
Hey, Pat, welcome on. Yeah, Nick Fuentes is the topic for tonight. He's very controversial. He's very, very controversial. And just like Kat, hey, Kat said no woman in her right mind would get near him. So he's a very controversial figure.
That's their job.
Right.
So you don't want to give them a pass, do you? It'd be like it's all the girls suck. So
I don't even blame it on the women, because I think that it's the incentive structures. Women are allowed to do this by the legal system, by kind of social norms. Technology is a big part of it. The attention that is available to women. Women go on Instagram and they get attention from thousands of men. So it's the incentives. But I would say that, because I hear this all the time, people say, well, the men need to step up and be better and lead the women. Easier said than done.
Of course, I agree with that.
They're at war with the system, and not even just the system, but also society.
So he's right to a point. I mean, he is. The system is set up against men. And there is nothing in it for young men nowadays to get married and have kids. It's just they take all of the risk. So that's why young men are becoming much more conservative. I think the newest generation, Gen Z, is one of the most as far as the men of Gen Z are one of the most conservative in history. They've actually are flocking to the Catholic Church. Some new polls out, and there's more like Gen Z Catholics than any other generation, almost in the past like 50 years. So these young men are searching for women who are traditional, who don't have an OnlyFans, who aren't half naked on Instagram, and these young women are out in society philandering and have zero consequences for their actions. Yeah, you want to be promiscuous and sleep around and get pregnant? I'll just have an abortion. Doesn't matter. I'll just have a morning after pill. And then when I'm done being passed around like a bottle of Crown, I will just settle down. And these younger men are not falling for that. Or they'll marry somebody, never work, have kids. The guy's a millionaire or makes $400,000 a year, and then they take half of his stuff. It's actually an incentive to leave him. So I think he's right about certain things, right? Now it's very easy to say, well, this is misogynistic and this is whatever. Get out of here with that, because it's just like calling me a Nazi or calling me a racist. It's just thrown around. There are actual problems in this society that we need to have conversations about. The divorce rate is higher than it's ever been in human history. There's something going wrong with marriage in our society, with children out of wedlock in our society. There's something going dreadfully wrong there. And it's a lack of Judeo-Christian values. It's a lack of principles. And a lot of it has to do with the influence and the way that the society is brought up. It is brought up to push men down and bring women up and allow women to be free and reckless and do whatever they do without consequence. Here is the Young Turks. I haven't watched this yet. This is Anna Kasparian. She's talking about the interview with Tucker Carlson. Let's hear what she has to say. I have not watched this yet.
I do think that having these types of conversations are still worth it, because we get a little bit of insight into not only who Fuentes is, but the experiences he had with conservative organizations trying to groom him for their own purposes, and then rejecting him and attempting to bury him the second he asks questions that they deem to be inappropriate, which actually happen to be very appropriate. So I don't know what to make about Nick Fuentes. What I do know is, regardless of how much you want him to go away, he's not going away. This guy had 300,000 people watching one of his live streams recently. He's blowing up. And if you want to know why he's blowing up, look no further than our government's fealty to a foreign government that's currently carrying out atrocities with our resources.
Okay, this is where I disagree. She's talking about Israel. Israel is not carrying out atrocities. They're not carrying out atrocities. It's something that is not happening. But that's the argument the anti-Israelites are making. the pro-Hamas and pro-Palestinian and the Muslim Brotherhood and people like Zoran Mamdani are making. They're making these arguments that are changing hearts and minds on the right and the left. So you have the extreme left, hates Israel, thinks Israel's a terrorist state, and the extreme right hates Israel, thinks Israel's a terrorist state. You know, the Israelis, this is in the Bible, are always going to be persecuted. The Jews are always going to be persecuted, no matter what. It's the destiny of being Jewish. But that's why he's so popular, because he's so inflammatory. And because he says things that even people on the left are going, oh my God, this guy he's a right winger and he believes the same thing that I believe, that they tune in and they say, well, let's see what else he has to say. Let's see what else he has to say. Let's see what else he has to say.
If you think my commentary about what Israel has been up to in the Middle East is what is leading to anti-Semitism in the country, how about maybe consider the actions of the Israeli government? Because believe it or not, people around the world do not rejoice in the endless imagery of children with their limbs blown off, or parents picking up their children's body parts and putting them in plastic bags in Gaza.
That's not happening.
People see that and they get angry.
Yeah. You know what I get angry at? Hamas having meetings in schools and putting school children at risk of being bombed. That's what I get angry at, Anna. But we disagree on that, and we're never going to agree on that. But yeah, he is popular. He kind of blew up a few years ago before he was supposed to come on this show. Pat, yes, he is a podcaster for politics, but he's been basically banned on every channel, which I disagree with. He's live on Twitter. You can watch him on Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter, Nick Fuentes, and hear what he has to say. Young kid, very young kid from Chicago, very smart, even though I disagree with most of the thing he has to say. Here is Nick Fuentes again on women. Let's listen to this.
I personally find women very frustrating when they are not expressing, and I just view that as
the beauty of it.
I see the way I look at it is like when you look at your favorite.
Now, again, this guy has never had sex in his life. Okay, I think he's saving himself for marriage. That's a very moral and awesome thing for a young man to do. But he said that before, but then he's also said it's involuntary, that women don't want to sleep with them. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, he has never had sex. So you have a different perspective on women if you've never actually been with a woman. If you've never actually been really in a real relationship with a woman, you're going to have a different perspective on that, right? So you have to consider somebody's experiences when you're listening to their opinion.
For TV shows,
right?
The Sopranos, Breaking Bad.
Hey, Michelle, welcome.
It's like the wife is the villain, because it's like the main character, if the wife could just get out of the way, would be running the show. And that's kind of how I feel like Ayn Rand, I agree with her about this. She said that the wife's role is like hero worship. The guy is the hero. The guy is supposed to be the entrepreneur, the conqueror, whatever. And the woman is really supposed to support the man's goals and be in his world. And
that's the last thing successful men need is more power worship, more hero worship, more, you're so great. Well, you get that at work. You don't want that at home. You become an unbearable asshole. And then you fall prey to what destroys every successful man, which is hubris. Like you mistake yourself for God.
See, that's where Nick Fuentes, he's just inexperienced with life. He's inexperienced with wife. It's not hero worship. The wife is not supposed to worship their husband and beef him up and build him up. If anything, the wife is supposed to keep them more grounded. A wife is supposed to be looking at your back while you're doing business deals, or you're talking to people and you're buying businesses, or you're talking about somebody at work and maybe your mind is a little clouded and your wife sees a different perspective and says, you need to watch out for that person. Or I don't know if you noticed this when we went out to dinner and them, but it seems like when you made this comment, they didn't really like what you had to say. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Or have you tried focusing on this area? Like your wife is supposed to be your eyes and ears and keep you focused, and keep you motivated and keep you happy, right? Now, men have their roles too, but it's not to hero worship you and be like, oh, you're the greatest thing in the world. Like that's not realistic, dude. But the kid's never had sex. He's never been in a relationship. He has no idea what the hell life is about. But he's listening.
You need someone who's not interested in what you do at all, only interested in you. And that's how you become balanced and wise. That's how you know your own limits. Because the ass kissing is what kills you. It's not, I mean, you had someone come to murder you at home. It doesn't seem to have affected you that much.
And if I were married, dude, she would never let me hear the end of it.
Well, that's probably true, but that's not what destroys men. It's not adversity that destroys men. It's comfort and flattery that destroys men. Right? That's what happened to King David. It's what happens to them all.
Yeah.
You're so great. You can never go wrong.
I just feel like we have I don't feel like we have an abundance of affection from women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in terms of where the pendulum is at, I feel like the women are very unloving to the men. That's why they don't cook. Because that's like the best way to express a love for a man. I said this on my show the other night. I'm like, the most beautiful words a woman could say is like, I made you dinner. I made you cookies.
Yeah.
Because that is like an act of love. And I think that, speaking as maybe from a different generation, the way that men feel now is like, women are not really providing too much. They expect so much from the men. They want the man to be rich and provide.
Yeah.
They want the man to be fit and a real leader and a real man. They also want to split the chores with the man. They want the man to do half the laundry and half the dishes and things like that. And it's like, so what do you do all day? You're on TikTok, you're like doom scrolling and eating Cheetos. Like what actually are you providing in the relationship? So I just feel like in terms of the deficit, it's like women are very emboldened. They're too, I think, assertive, always giving their opinions, always critiquing, always, I think that they're very bold right now. And sarcastic. I think that's a big reason why they're not very attractive.
I get it. All I would say is that in a happy marriage, all of that goes away. There's no arguing about who does what. People fall seamlessly into the roles they were born into. They acknowledge those, are not insecure about it at all. They express love in a whole bunch of different ways by serving each other. It's like super easy. And,
yes,
and all of
very
that,
true.
Obnoxious, entitled, you don't make enough money, all that crap just disappears.
When you're with the right one. But it's also a generational thing, Tucker. It's also a generational thing. Here is Matt Walsh on Tucker with Megyn Kelly talking about the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes interview. I don't know why it's controversial at all. And this is what drives me nuts sometimes about the right. You have these podcasters, right? And there's like your core guys. There's the Daily Wire. There's the Matt Walsh. And then there's the Ben Shapiro. And then the Michael Knowles, who I love, by the way. He's probably my favorite, Michael. But you have these guys, and it's like, they kind of act like they're the kings of the podcasting. It's like you're not. Like you're good. You were some of the first ones, but you don't even consume. Like I think it's like 10% of the market, which is a huge market share. But like you're not like some big freaking awesome whatever. But just because they feel that way doesn't mean the majority of the right does. And sometimes they fall into this role where they think that they are the opinions of the right. I have not watched this, but let's listen to it.
Okay, just quick programming note. Tomorrow, we have Tucker Carlson on our next leg of my tour. And the night after that, we have Ben Shapiro, which is something I pride myself on, being a show where both of those guys could come and trying to do as little as possible to divide the right, which I think is a force for good in this world, unlike the left. However, this controversy is front and center on virtually every right-wing website there is, Matt. Recently with Ben, even, you and I, we've had dust-ups around like women, that kind of thing. But you've always had my back on the big picture, and I have yours too. And same with Tucker and Ben with respect to you and with respect to me. Those two really don't like each other for other reasons. But to me, it's so sad to see like the right on right violence, rhetorical violence, because we need each other. Those two are both huge powerhouses. And, we don't want a house divided when we're fighting the true enemy, which is these radical leftists.
Megan, but they can disagree. I think they can disagree. And then we can make our opinions. That's the thing. We don't always have to be united. There's not really one true set of values for a political party, because somebody always feels a little bit different on some parts of it. So I don't think that we should have super internal turmoil, but I think we should be open to criticize each other. And that's what's wrong with the left side of the aisle. The left side of the aisle will never criticize each other. As our Mom Donnie gets up and says, "Oh, I'm a socialist, and I think that billionaires should seize the assets and take their money and give it to poor people." And there are a lot of Democrats who are like, "That's freaking insane," but they don't dare say it. They don't dare say it. They don't dare disavow it. They don't even dare question it. They lock step into whatever the person's saying. I think that's more dangerous than Ben Shapiro saying, "Listen, I don't like what Tucker Carlson did. I think he fluffed up Nick Fuentes. I think that he's wrong, and I think that that's okay. And I think that maybe Tucker and Ben should sit down and do an interview. If they're these two giant media moguls who have all this influence, sit down together and have both of your listeners hear what each other has to say." I think more speech and more communication on the right side of the aisle is better, and not locking in step with orders and a strict line of values like the left does.
And I think what they're really fighting over is Israel. When you boil it down, they're
Correct.
fighting over Israel. I know people call Tucker an anti-Semite. I genuinely don't believe that. He's gotten very critical of Israel, and he's allowed to have those views. And Ben is very defensive of Israel. He'll criticize Israel too, but as a general matter, he's defensive of Israel. And I just feel like, how are we letting that issue? Yes, it does relate to America. Yes, right now it's very much in the news, but it's like such a small percentage of what we need to be worrying about. Like when you look back, you zoom out at America and its problems. This is not even in the top 3. And yet we're spending so much energy on it, more than I think is warranted.
I thought Matt Walsh, we were going to hear what he had to say, but I guess not. Not in that clip. Here is Steven Crowder. There is nothing inherently anti-MAGA about Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes. That being said, there is a right way and a wrong way to have this conversation, and it seems like a lot of people are missing the plot. I like Steven Crowder. I haven't listened to this either. Let's hear what he had to say about this situation.
But let me first clarify what should not be a disqualifying factor. And I don't see some of these people there understanding this. Interviewing controversial figures should not be disqualifying at all.
Correct.
Whether it's Nick Fuentes, whether it's Vladimir Putin, whether it's Sergei Lavrov, whether it's Dugin, who we interviewed, Jeffrey Sachs, or Clint Howard, the lady nun.
I was like, wait, what?
These are not disqualifying factors, nor are bow ties or recently becoming enamored with fly fishing or even putting bow ties on the fish that you fly.
So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at a contemporary, modern-day, 2024 Russian grocery store 2 years into sanctions. Here we go. So I guess you put in 10 rubles here, and you get it back when you put the cart.
Oh, he discovered Aldi.
Yeah.
So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it. Come on.
Trader Joseph Stalin's.
Unicorn and mini mills. All right. And we all came in around $400, about $400. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought. Corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us.
Well, what about Russian leaders literally imprisoning people for holding the wrong political perspectives? Or the fact that 60% of all Russians spend at least half of their income on food because of how poor they are. It should give you pause if someone simps for Sharia law.
Sharia law is bad, Seth. I don't know if you've heard that. It's bad. It's worse than what's happening in New York and Detroit. It's just bad.
Correct.
I don't know why. You should know, Seth, that the real danger is Sharia law. Sharia law. And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, like, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this.
Now do Kandahar.
With a rape rate of 0, where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen. And, you know, if people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
And you guys caught that, right? You said a rape rate of 0.
Yeah.
Do you know the statistical likelihood of there being a rape rate of 0 in an Islamic country? Ironically, it's 0. You guys remember this, right? January 1st, 2021, when some of these texts were revealed, he said, we are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. I hate him passionately.
Ugh.
That seems pretty cut and dry. Is there inconsistency in the subject, in this case, Tucker Carlson, in their own views that they espouse? Is it very hard to keep track of? And is there inconsistency with what has been relatively established as conservative, America first, nationalist values? I would say yes. And that has nothing to do with interviewing Nick Fuentes.
No.
Who maybe, you know, we'll have on the show at some point in the future. I'm sure I would agree with him on some things and disagree with him on a whole bunch of things. Probably would be less of a debate and certainly not like a softball like Tucker Carlson. Like that's what an interview serves. That's its purpose, is to get answers, usually from the person most qualified to give those answers. But if you just skim past them, that's where I think you're right to be skeptical.
See, I guess they're more upset that they're not just that Tucker Carlson is not just interviewing him, but he's not really jumping down his throat. I don't think there's any reason to jump down his throat. I think you could disagree with him, but you can do it amicably. I don't think there's any moral obligation to shut somebody down because you're just going to influence less dialogue. You're going to influence less dialogue. You're not going to have them answer more questions if you just dump down their throat in the previous question. I don't think that's productive. I think it's actually counterproductive.
And then I applied for a job at the Leadership Institute. That was kind of the next big saga.
But you didn't get that job.
No, I did not get the job.
Why?
Well, I was told, because I knew people that worked there, that were field representatives there. It was a field representative job. And so I went out for a job training at the end of July 2017. So after that second semester, and I applied for this field rep job. It was this 2-week training. And I go there, and on the first day of the whole thing, they go around the room of all the prospective applicants. It's like a big tryout, basically, for 2 weeks. And they wanted to get everybody to break the ice and know each other. So we did introductions. They said, say your name, how old you are, and why you're a conservative. And at this time, people are not where, let's say, we are right now. They're not America first. They're not anything like, they're not talking about great replacement. That's not on the radar for them. So you go around the room and you hear stuff about small government, free markets, personal responsibility, that sort of thing. And they get to me and I said, well, I'm a conservative because we're losing our civilization because of mass immigration. America doesn't resemble America anymore. France is no longer France. I said, and if we don't conserve the demographics, forget about the rest. That's what we need to conserve. And I said that. And I was told later on that at that moment, I was immediately disqualified by the people that were running the job training.
On what grounds?
I said that was too far right. That was too extreme.
Worrying about who lives in your country is far right?
Apparently.
I mean, this is what's appealing about Nick Fuentes. This is what's appealing. He's saying what people are thinking and won't say. Here's him talking about OnlyFans. Like these are good talking points that appeal to people in America. These are things I'm sure a lot of us could agree with him on.
Basically, there's now a very large subculture, much larger than people want to admit, of women who the